Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the VR Download, a weekly show recorded live in the Upload Virtual Studios, where we bring you the latest news, reviews, comments, and interviews from the VR industry. My name is Kyle, Operations Manager at Upload. Now let's meet the rest of today's panel. Over here on the left,
This is David. Hello, how are you? I'm from Upload VR as well. I'm a senior editor here, and I'm happy to be here to talk to everyone.
excellent. Okay, and over here on the right,
Hi everyone, Ian Hamilton here, managing editor. I'm been a big week. Going to be a lot of cool stuff to talk about.
absolutely. And our guest this week. Go ahead and introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hi, Nonny de Peña. I have been messing around with virtual reality, I guess, about 11 or 12 years now, and AR. So been thinking spatially for a long time. And I come
Excellent.
from a journalism background. I know I've got a little bit more to say, but
Well, we'll have plenty of time for you to have conversations with us, and we're going to have all sorts of fun news. But before we get to the news, I do want to do a quick shout out to our members here on YouTube who pledged their support for access to our custom emotes and polls on what we play for gaming streams. Thank you to Heather Birchall and Dominique Fruchtman. If you click join on our YouTube page, you can get shout outs every stream and access those perks as well. So with that out of the way, let's go ahead and start with the news. So the news discussions this week, like Ian said, is going to be very interesting. Our first news piece this week is that the official Oculus Link cable is now available. $79, 5 meters, which is exactly the same as the Rift S length. Who wants to start this conversation? David, why don't you lead us off here?
Yeah, I think initially the reaction is going to be, holy crap, that's an expensive USB cord. But you kind of have to understand what you're getting with it. It is like a high quality fiber optic connection. It should theoretically be a better connection and better visual fidelity than other USB-C cables people have probably used. And it is very long, right? So 5 meters is a good length. That is a pretty standard PC VR headset length as opposed to a shorter USB-C cable you might have used previously. I know the one that I originally bought, yeah, I couldn't really turn around because the cable wasn't long enough to give me slack down to my feet. It would kind of cut off in my waist, so I couldn't even step over it when I was spinning around. So it wasn't really a good, room scale cable, but this one should be pretty solid.
To be clear, have they said? I don't think it'll be better visual quality, but it will be. You'll be able to move your head maybe a little bit more freer and be less worried about the cable getting pulled out.
I mean, I haven't tried it. I would assume fiber optic would be a little better.
Yeah, not just visual quality, but in terms of lag, in terms of performance,
Yeah,
in
less
terms of actually
compression,
being
right?
able to. That's right. In terms of actually being able to really play, interact, do the sort of things you want to do.
Weird. I worry that the bandwidth is the same. Like it'll be limited, I assume, by the USB 3 standard. I don't know.
Yeah, but that's a pretty high bar to hit for USB-C. I mean, the different qualities of the cable is determining the bandwidth, I guess. So higher quality equals higher bandwidth. Is that how this works?
I mean, here's an example of something that we're hoping it's going to solve. We've been building a piece on. By the way, I'm CEO of Emblematic Group. I didn't mention that part, and we do a lot of stuff. But we're building a piece for the Japanese American National Museum about a kid who was taken to one of the American concentration camps in the 40s, and he was an artist and did these drawings, and eventually was killed in the war. But it's an intense story. But we've made all of his drawings into quill animations. So we can't play the quill animations in Quest by itself, and the museum installation is going to happen this spring. But man, we'd be so happy if this cable allows us to actually play back the quill animations in a Quest. It'll make installations at museum just so much better.
Interesting.
That's a good use case because I'm sure for a museum exhibit, something like that, you would ideally you'd be using Quest because that's so much less, setup and it's less cables to worry about. So if you could,
And
for that
costs.
one exhibit,
Yeah.
just plug it in for that one thing rather than having to bring in a whole other headset for one piece, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
So that's one of the use cases we're excited about as a possibility.
I'm
Okay,
going to do
cool.
something very unique, and I'm going to jump right over and look at the comments because it looks like there's
Look at
already
that.
some good comments. I'll just switch seats here.
And you have 2 chairs lined up perfectly to
I-
match the, yeah.
I do. I have an exact match of what's going on here. So
That's
yes, that's how I'm
hilarious.
able to do that. Okay, so in the comments here, Chris Richardson wants to know, how does the cable affect video quality? I thought the encoding and decoding are at a set value. Hold that thought until our next news piece. Let's see here. Kay Asante, with an extension cable and the third parties out there, I have an almost 30-foot cable. Do we know if
Oh.
there's a limit? Is there a
Well,
physical
no,
limit?
that was the other article that we had. Was there's an absurd optical extender out there that you could buy that's hundreds of dollars, but you could theoretically use an optical link cable to like run Oculus Link to a neighbor's house because of the way the extender works and connects over light speed or some percentage of light speed, and you can actually run Link hundreds and hundreds of feet if you use this optical link extender.
That sounds like that would be a lot of fun in like a soccer field or something.
Maybe Shanti, why don't you post your specs on the YouTube channel and share them with us?
Exactly.
Yeah.
All right, let's switch back over here, and I will get into the second piece of news to address the question there. So the Oculus Link cable resolution. So the resolution can be manually increased to make it almost as clear as the Rift S, which means that there are settings now that you can increase the resolution for the Quest using Link. Ian, have you even given this any try?
I thought about it right before I joined this, but I was worried because it's a pretty manual process. You've got to open, I think, the terminal, the command window, and really get in there and change around some values. And if things go funky, you might have to reset things and go back to what you had before. And I really didn't want to mess with all those values before coming in here because, yeah, I noticed that the resolution is a little bit lower in here than I'm used to in other experiences sometimes. And I'm also using a laptop right now, which has...
So just to be clear, you're using a Quest with Link right now. That's why you're
Yeah.
seeing all this? Yeah, okay.
Yeah, so I'm using a Quest with Link. I've got the cord coming out of my headset right here, and it's a very short cord. I ordered the proper Link cable today. Should arrive next week. Order that fast. If you're going to order one, order it fast because it's in limited supply and it'll probably sell out. So I thought about doing that today, and I was a little scared off by the manual things I could mess up. And what I was trying to say is the laptop I'm using is theoretically, I think, a 1080, but because it's a laptop, I think that gets powered down some, and I don't know if it will actually match up with the values they recommended. So
Yeah, you might need to go in and tweak the power settings in the NVIDIA console. Interesting.
Yeah.
Nonny, I'm curious. You've been around long enough to know all the different, you probably remember pre-DK1 where the resolution was terrible.
I have actually Oculus 154 sitting in my back behind me.
That's awesome. That's great. What do you think is...
I ruined its resale value because I stapled trackers onto it because I wanted to walk around. But anyway, go ahead.
I'm just curious. What do you think is the lowest acceptable resolution for a consumer-ready VR headset?
I don't think that's that bar is really so flexible. I sort of feel like the question was how long is a piece of rope, because you'll find that when I think, oh my God, I can't stand this, that other people are really satisfied and are really enjoying their experience. So again, I talked a little bit with you guys offline about this idea of behavioral realism being more important than fidelity. And I think it's the same thing. If the experience is good, you can get away with lower things. That said, I didn't do a lot of work for the cardboard. I tended to go. I tended to go for things that would allow me to walk around. So I went even further than early Oculus. As I was saying, I used to 3D print my own headset so that we could really put trackers in any configuration we wanted and make crazy spaces that people could move through. But now it's really we've taken our Quest and just walked it out into our through our parking lot to sort of see how far we could go, and it's been pretty amazing how flexible it is. So even though you might have some of the fidelity issues that you're talking about, that flexibility of movement becomes very attractive as well.
Interesting. So it's all subjective, basically.
I think so.
I agree with you too. I really agree.
Yeah, I would agree for sure because I've definitely had things where I've shown, like my father-in-law, he tried out, I think, like a PSVR. He tried out Bridge Crew, Star Trek Bridge Crew on PSVR, and he was in love with it. Thought it was amazing. But then my brother-in-law, who's a traditional kind of typical mainstream gamer, he jumped in there and he could immediately see, the screen door effect, and it was just off-putting to him. And so it really kind of depends on the person's perception and experience, and what their exposure to media is, and
how you set them up. Yeah, if you sort of point out the things before they even go in there, maybe it becomes more visible to them when they're looking around.
Yeah, I probably would. Yeah.
So, Nonny, I have some news for you. One of our viewers here, Chris Richardson, says, "Tell Nonny they released Quill Theater for Quest this week."
Well, thank you very much.
Oh, that's right.
The question though is, we've got the Quill embedded into Unity, so we'll have to take a quick look at that, because there's a lot of other. We did photogrammetry of one of the actual barracks that they were placing people in, so a lot of the Quill happens inside that barrack. So we're marrying the two things. So we'll take a look at the Quill Theater and thank you so much, but I don't know whether that's going to solve our ultimate problem.
Very cool. But thank you, Chris. Appreciate that
Thank you very
information.
much.
Yeah. Okay, so let's move on to the next piece of news. Big Screen. Big Screen's made a partnership and now has a cinema where they can play real popular films, and you can pay $4 for a 2D experience or $5 for a 3D. You pay $1 for that extra D, David. What do you think? Is that cool?
Yeah, it comes at a premium, which it makes sense, I guess. Too. Traditional theaters are like that too. It's I haven't tried it yet. We were offered the ability to pre-watch some movies over the weekend before the news dropped, and it was a weekend, and I was with family, so I didn't take the time to do it. But I like the idea. I think it's really neat, and there's probably a lot of people watching our show in big screen right now, which is going to be an interesting layer of news there. But I haven't tried it, but I'm excited not for the experience of watching a movie in VR. I'm excited because of the social aspect of it, of how easy big screen is to use, of their avatar system, which is really great as well. You can get like a little virtual thing of popcorn, and just getting to hang out with people in like a very bespoke and very articulated environment that feels like a movie theater. I think that's what's cool about it. I don't know. I don't know if we'll get to the point where movies are premiered this way, where you can go into VR and watch them in big screen. I think that would be great if we ever get to that point. So, Star Wars this weekend, you can hop in VR and watch it instead of having to go all the way to a real movie theater. I think that'd be pretty cool. But right now, it's mostly older movies. They have, I'm trying to remember some of them.
Transformers, Dark of the Moon, Raiders of the Lost Ark.
What was
Ghost in the Shell?
Ghost in the Shell. There you go. That was one of them. And Ready Player One isn't there yet. I think that's one that needs to be. They need to try to push for that. I think that'd be a good genre audience fit.
So just a quick poll here of everybody here. David, have you watched a 3D movie in a VR headset?
Yeah.
And did you appreciate it and enjoy it?
Yeah. I guess.
Okay.
Yeah. We used to watch. They used to have lots of movies in Second Life. A decade ago, they would have movie theaters people could go to and watch movies.
Yeah.
But it sort of felt like after a while, people kind of got tired sitting in their chair and they wanted to move around. I don't know. It felt a little bit 2D.
So Nonny, have you actually watched a 3D movie
I have not.
in a VR headset? Okay.
Not yet.
Ian, what about you? Have you done that?
I've started one, but I don't finish them. It's hard to go 2 hours watching a movie, and to exactly what you said,
just said-
it's you feel fidgety after a while and kind of want to take a little break. The social aspect is the appeal right there, and to David's point about like how far away we are from a premiere in VR, it's going to be a long time because the movie studios have their very set business model where let's premiere it on the big screen and make a lot of money from that by doing the screens across the world, and then let's release it some months later on home video, and then it almost seems like this VR release is even after the home video rentals release, where they can let you access it with friends in VR for a slightly lower price than a regular
think
rental.
about like one of the tricky things is if someone were to premiere a movie in VR and big screen, and you were to watch it in your headset, the 2D output window on your desktop, you could screen record that, and that would make piracy even more rampant than it is now.
Right.
You know, one person watching a movie in VR could then record their screen and get a high definition version of that movie.
If any of our commenters have tried the big screen, I'm curious if that's actually the case, if it does the screen mirror via big screen, because big screen has done a lot to try to work around those, both work with studios and work within the limits. But, we've got that high definition copyright protection problem that we always deal with. And I don't know if the screen mirror will work that way. Be really curious.
I know it does currently. I don't know about cinema though.
My
But
big
for the
problem
rentals,
with it, my big problem with it is when you watch a 3D movie, because of the way that the compression works, you get different compression artifacts in the left and right eye. And so if somebody could come up with an algorithm or a compression that can do the same thing for both eye, that might help a little bit. But the big thing for me here, and the advantage of having big screen not be a big distribution center, is that you could have indie people, filmmakers, independents that want to find some avenue to distribute their stuff. Big screen might be the way to go. I don't know. What are your...
Has anybody done any like similar thing but premiering maybe live theater with tracked actors?
Ooh.
Yeah, there's a couple people. There's the Under Presents. Have you tried the Under Presents? It's such a mind-bending experience, but that's close.
I haven't.
Oh,
Under
yeah.
Presents.
The Under, so it's the name of like a bar, or not a bar, but it's a venue in virtual reality called the Under, and they've got various actors from New York and various places using quests to come in, and they're blurring the lines between things that have happened in the past and things that are actually happening live in front of you. And it's really mind-bending. I highly recommend it.
Oh, that sounds really fun. Thank you.
I'm going to check.
Didn't you watch a recreation of Princess Bride in Rec Room?
Yeah, and that was the other thing I was going to mention. An acting troupe put together a 4-act play for a VR adaptation of The Princess Bride. And boy, I watched that whole thing, and they waited for them to say marriage, and he nailed it. He nailed it so well.
But you watched the whole thing. You didn't walk away. That's interesting. You didn't get tired.
I watched it on flat screen. Yeah.
Oh, watched it on
because Rec Room has a flat screen mode.
Yeah. Right. Okay.
Oh.
Okay.
All right. So a few comments here. Looks like let's see. Jenna Tolles says, would watching a movie in VR be nauseating at all? And Ian, you should answer this one.
I've gotten a little bit bothered by 3D movies in a regular theater from time to time. What you can do is you change the size of the screen in most of these programs to make it a little bit smaller and not have it take up so much of your field of view. And that might make it less nauseating for people who are more prone to it.
Yeah, stick it out farther in space and it does work a little bit better. I agree with that. Ad Hoc Hero. I almost said Ad Hochero, but it's not. It's Ad Hoc Hero. I once hosted a How to Train Your Dragon 3D marathon in big screen, and it was successful. That's good. I like that series of movies. Yeah. James O'Laughlin says, yes, the Under Presents is amazing. Great. And Jenna Tolles wants to know, are the movie theaters modeled and themed for the movie you are watching? Ooh, that's good. It's a good question. I don't know. I haven't tried the big screen.
I think he's
Probably
only got a
not
couple
yet.
right now.
Yeah.
Hmm.
That's a good idea, though. At least like posters or something. That would be kind of a cool touch.
Yeah, I agree. I absolutely agree. Okay, let's move on to the next piece of news. So it looks like Snow Crash is getting an HBO series. So we got Ready Player One, and now we're getting. Oh, I can't do two. Let's see. I can't do two. Just pretend.
You just
Here,
do the thumb.
here.
Ready Player One,
and
then
two, and
yeah.
now Snow Crash. First of all, Ian, did you read Snow Crash?
I read the Wikipedia page for it.
The Cliff Notes, huh?
Yeah.
I've read
David,
Snow Crash.
did
Sorry.
you read it? Okay. Yeah.
At least 3 times or 4 times.
I read it once, and I struggled through it. It was
Interesting.
I don't
started
know.
it.
Well, just
In
so
addition
for
to the Wikipedia
people
page.
that are unaware, that this is an important novel for VR because of why?
Because it is the metaverse. The metaverse was
Okay.
coined, that term, because it was in that book.
When did you
So-
first
What's
read
the
it,
book
Nonny?
about? What is it about?
Well, I'm not young. I read it when it first came out.
Wow. And did it
So-
have any effect on you at the time?
Well, I'd already been reading Gibson, which had a more profound
Ooh,
effect.
yeah.
So, I mean, Neuromancer, wow.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, in fact, if you, that's the reason I picked these glasses actually that I'm wearing, had some reference to those early Mona Lisa Overdrive glasses. And so I'm wearing my sorry, for anybody who can't see me, I'm wearing sort of silver. I guess everybody should be able to see, but just in case, I'm wearing my reflective sunglasses. But in any case, so Snow Crash, to me felt like a little bit like a follow-on from there, but it was fun. I really enjoyed it. I reread it recently and thought I was surprised how much of
What
it
is
held
this
up.
book about? Can someone summarize?
So basically, it is the protagonist. His name is actually Hero Protagonist, which is kind of funny.
God. Oh my God. I'm not gonna read it. I'm already done.
Okay, all right. Yeah, then there's another. I remember.
I think the listeners would like a summary, is what I'm trying to get to. I mean, I've read the Wikipedia page too, but like, if someone doesn't know what this book is, what is it? Why should people care?
Yeah. So what is he? A pizza delivery guy?
Yeah, but he's on a skateboard. So
Right.
but he's got this souped up skateboard, and there's sort of a whole classic, underground government world, and people being sort of separated into their different components. And I don't know, some of it seems to me to be holding really, really true. Like there's these people who start to, there is no land, and they start on the ocean to put together bits of debris and make these floating islands. And we're seeing that with all these garbage in the ocean. People are actually starting to assemble worlds from the garbage in the ocean. And there's these elements in Snow Crash like that are quite vibrant in the book, that are having beyond the metaverse, having actually a reflection of where we're going in the real world. So he's a kind of an amazing, classic teenage anti-hero character who gets caught up in this larger story. It's fun. It's fun.
Yeah,
Things like people are having to live in storage units.
Yeah.
The kind of homeless problem we're seeing now. Where do you put people? In this case, they start sticking everybody in you store bins, and so the world itself is actually pretty interesting.
Dystopian. It's just very dystopian world. Yeah.
One thing I want to mention is Heaney, the developer who built this studio for us, was pretty inspired by it as well. But I believe he discovered that the refresh rate in that book that they described for VR headsets is the refresh rate of the Oculus Quest in 2019.
Oh, that's interesting.
It was. Is that right, Heaney? Give me an okay if I'm. Yeah. Heaney says I'm right. And the resolution is apparently in the same ballpark too. And so it's mind-blowing that book came out 1992, and it described the refresh rate of the headset I'm wearing now in 2019.
And the other thing that happens is just that the code is able to be sent down into people and cause this kind of crazy scramble, which is interesting on all kinds of different fronts in terms of
I'll definitely watch the series. It sounds interesting.
Yeah.
I don't know if I
There's
can get
a
past that character name though.
yeah.
I'll
Well,
try.
yeah. There's a there's a club that
See,
all
David,
the
it's
cool
spelled
hackers go to,
HIRO,
and
so it's okay.
Oh yeah, it's
oh
definitely
yeah,
okay
that
then.
makes it better. Yeah, I'm
Yeah,
gonna switch over here
I've
and see what the comments are saying.
Yeah, we're getting a lot of comments.
I
There's a-
haven't heard that in any anime ever.
Let's see.
1992.
True. Yeah.
Let's see. Chris Richardson says, I was so let down by the ending. Snow Crash seemed to be a big joke in the end. James O'Laughlin says, Westworld
Spoilers.
is feeling a slight cyberpunk itch now, more with Snow Crash Super Cyberpunk
Yeah,
on
I love
HBO.
Westworld.
Oh, I do
It's
too.
so
Westworld
good.
is incredible. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Let's see. Kay Asante says the whole book is basically based in VR. The story is a bit of a product of its time, but it's dripping with cool. Ivan B says Snow Crash and the Diamond Age were awesome. Let's see here. Chris Richardson says Altered Carbon is your cyberpunk series to
Ooh,
watch.
I like that show. That was a good show.
It was pretty good.
Yeah. I had a great concept. I loved the idea of wearing sleeves of people.
I think the
Love that.
actors.
Ugh.
I think they could have found better actors for that.
I agree.
Yeah. Let's see. All
I
right,
have
and rendered
shivers. I
reality.
don't know how much of that came across in my avatar.
Rendered reality just says, "Hey everyone, what did I miss?" So we should start over, I guess.
I would agree.
Right.
The end, it's got a pretty bad. The end of Snow Crash is a little cheap, but
Ending a story is hard. Like,
It
can
can
we
be
all
hard.
agree that endings are hard? So
Yes. People have a
It's a-
tendency to rush the ending.
yeah.
So moving right along, let's see. So the hot topic. Let's. We're not going to do the hot topic yet. We're going to do release of the week. Release of the week. So what did everybody play this week? And I'm going to start over here with you, Ian. What did you play this week?
Played two things. I went into the new Pistol Whip update, which went live the moment, right before we came to the studio. So that's the High Priestess song. That's their 11th song into Pistol Whip. And that's amazing. It was fun. You've got to actually do the pistol whipping a lot in the game. Very fun song. It's a 5 out of 5 game. I highly recommend it. It's super addictive. And but the thing I want to talk about, my favorite project of all time, my favorite software ever made in virtual reality, Titans of Space, launches today on Oculus Quest. If you haven't played Titans of Space, it's a really debatable thing because it brings out all the worst in the consumer buyers because they want to judge how good something is in VR by how many hours of game time you get out of it. And that doesn't
Which
seem
is so
to me,
stupid. I hate
yeah,
that.
it's not a right way to judge something. So Titans of Space, you go in there, you set your options, and then boom, you've got an Earth that's about, yay big floating in front of you, and the moon is orbiting around it. And you look to the right, and the sun is there. And all three of those bodies are presented to scale. So 1/1,000,000th their actual size. And I've never found anything else in virtual reality that does a better job more quickly of conveying such hard to grasp information about our universe in such a simple, quick way using VR. So scale and understanding the difference of scale is something unique to VR with the way the optics work and being able to give you an impression of stereoscopic 3D. You are able to look at this Earth floating in front of you and look at the sun and instantly understand on a very deep human perception level just how much larger the sun is than the Earth and then the moon. And then you go through all the different planets and you start seeing them side by side. You see Jupiter and how giant it is. And you can put the Earth right next to it and let the two sort of hang there in the distance and get this sense of scale and the size difference of these things. Because I'm a space nerd. I grew up on space stuff. I love Star Trek, but I would get the space books and they would always have the Earth as a really small ball right here, and then they would show the sun off to the right of the side on the right page, cut off, right, because they cannot show in the book just how much bigger the sun
Yeah.
is than the
Yeah, I
Earth.
remember that. Yeah.
And it's just magical. I love it. But you're realistically, this tour that you can go on through all the planets and then all the stars is only going to last you maybe 30 minutes to an hour. And it's $10. And so there's people out there in the comments going, $10. What? I play games that are $40 and I spent 400 hours in them. And that's not, and it's not the way to judge that piece of content. It's not fair to it. It's not fair to the information you're consuming, or to the educational value, or the ability to put that thing on different people. It's as good or better than a trip to the planetarium in a VR headset.
So the nice thing about this Titans of Space is that it's been around for quite a while. This isn't a new. Drash, who is the developer, has done a fantastic job of this. And I remember the first time I went flying past Uranus and how massive it was. And I just said they should have sent a poet. I mean, it was
The
so
Carl Sagan stuff,
awe-inspiring. Yeah, I mean, seriously, it's a fantastic experience.
Yeah. You have to work. I mean, like, if you read Carl Sagan and you read books like that and gotten inspired by space in various ways, it's the project to do that for a new generation with VR. I mean, so I described this a bit in my review, but I've got my Quest, and I got a second Quest for my daughter, and I want to inspire her in ways that I was inspired, and I want her to understand why I care about this stuff so much. And Titans of Space is the thing to. So we both put on our quests and went through the tour stops together. It's not multiplayer. We just simply said, "Oh, I'm at Earth and I'm looking at the moon right now," and 1, 2, 3, ready, and we hit the ready button and went off to the next tour stop together. And I cannot. It's really hard for me to convey the being able to watch the journey of this thing, which was on the original Oculus Share front, offered for free for people to just try out on their headsets, on their DK1s, and then to see it just refined over and over and over again over the years, and then get to try it now on a wireless headset with my kid, and to just see this sharpening to everything they were trying to do with the software, and literally the sharpening to my resolution inside the headset, so I'm able to see more detail in everything around me. It's a magical feeling to see this piece of software evolve over the years and get so much better, and it's still here, and it gets me so excited because, yeah, like the way I described in my review, and I don't know if you've since you've been demoing for so many years, just like me, and longer than me, way longer. You try to inspire people. You try to inspire people, but you then have a conversation about how hard this is to do, about the limitations, and you go back. Your journey goes back so far, but like, you go into the DK1 and go, "Oh, don't lean around. Don't lean around in the DK1." Then you go into the DK2 and you're like, "Oh, look at the screen door effect. That's really distracting, isn't it?" And yeah, there's the wire, and you've got to buy a PC. And then you go into the Rift CV1 and you've got to set up 3 cameras around you in your room in order to have a good experience with the Rift CV1. And then, it's every one of these things. And Gear VR, you've got, again, don't lean around. So every one of these headsets, there's but, when you're explaining and trying to inspire people. And now here's Oculus Quest, where it's wireless and I'm able to lean around comfortably and not feel discomfort just by simply shifting a little bit in my chair. And it's a magical moment for me. And I really feel like VR has crossed a threshold.
You know what? One of the reasons I think I said earlier that I was always using Vives is being able to move around and be able to really walk around, and I didn't have to worry when I was asking people in a climate change piece to go underwater, to just literally duck underwater and feel that, and those sort of things were really limited in how, in terms of distribution and the amount of people could see it. To me, the Quest is magical. I feel the same way. Like, the promise is finally starting to come true here.
Yeah.
And the weight, all of it. I love the Quest. we've been building a lot of stuff in WebXR, and the fact that I can just send somebody a URL and they can open it up literally in a Quest without having to even do a download is just magic. It's magic.
It's good that we still get impressed by this stuff, because the awe, the inspiration, it's still there. It's still driving us. That's excellent. David, what have you played this week?
The main thing is Radial G Proteus that just came out on Quest, I believe, two days ago. It's speaking of VR experiences that have been around for a while. This is a game that was a Rift launch title, and it was around even before that. And now it's been ported over to Quest with the new art style, some new content. It's a racing game, kind of like F-Zero, where it's like sci-fi racing, in like super futuristic jet car type designs. But the thing that's its kind of unique thing is you race around tubular like cylinders that you can go around 360 around it while you're driving. So it's not just a straight road; it's like actual
Yeah, that's what I was
circular.
thinking. Me too.
Oh, really?
That doesn't make you.
Oh.
It's gonna
exactly
mess
what I
a
was
lot of
thinking.
people up.
That
I'm
was
with
my
you,
thoughts
Dave.
exactly.
Well,
I'm with you, David. I love that.
So this
game.
is super interesting question, right? So I have found that, and I have done a lot of demos, and I've collected data. So I found that this thing that Ian and I both are, imagining, the sim sickness, hits about 30 to 40% of the audience, right? So that means that 60 to 70% of people agree with you guys. This is really fun. And I just don't know whether that is going to be consistent in the future, or as we become more
that's
accustomed
a
to our
topic
virtual stuff.
that's really came up lately because of Boneworks. That game, a lot of people bought headsets for Boneworks. They bought a Valve Index, spent $1,000, got Boneworks in anticipation of Half-Life Alyx, and they're playing on the highest fidelity headset out there, highest refresh rate, highest comfort, everything, and they still get sick because of the way Boneworks is designed.
So
And
I love Index. If I have the Rift S, the Quest, and the Index sitting side by side already, I'm going to go into the Index 9 times out of 10 because of how much more comfortable it is to me visually, everything about it. And Boneworks has this amazing physics sandbox where you can literally everything like this. I could put my hand through it, right? That's old VR. Heaney, get on it. But like in Boneworks, you press this and it actually falls over. Every object around you is grabbable, pushable. It has a reaction. And I watched this video on Reddit last night where someone got themselves stuck in a grate where they're wearing a grate around them. Their body is somehow lodged in between two small bars of like a grate that you would see keeping crowds in a line out on the street.
Like
and
a barrier.
This person, yeah, barrier, and they're stuck in this, and they're hitting everything around them by just turning around and moving, and it's hilarious to watch, but also instantly sickening. Just you will need to lay down for 45 minutes if you do that too much, and it's such a to your point. I mean, like it's such a tough thing. Like here's the best headset on the market, and it's still turning some people away because of that, all the weird things that you can do in it.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's why my design is so conservative, right? Even little things that I make, I found, for example, we took a 360 camera and we clamped it to a helicopter and we shot over the Arctic over Greenland, because we're tracking, climate change and Greenland melting. And then we did a model of the actual helicopter, so you're inside the helicopter with the projected 360 video on a sphere outside the helicopter. And that's one of those things where you hope that people aren't going to get nauseous. And even though I reduced my number of people reporting discomfort, I still got some people flying in the helicopter, still made people feel, bad.
And the flip side of this, I have to point out, I mean, Boneworks has sold, from what we can tell, an order of magnitude more copies than almost any other VR software I've ever seen. Like,
wow.
They in like a week and a half or something, they're on path to have as many reviews as Beat Saber has had in like a year and a half. Like they're just it's unbelievable how many units they've probably sold in an extremely short amount of time, and it's got really positive reviews from the people who are buying it and getting in there. So it's this complicated situation where the people who are playing it are loving it, and the people who are getting sick are just either skipping it, moving on, and keeping they're clearly not going to the reviews anymore and downvoting it as a result of that in the same numbers that they were a couple years ago.
So we have a couple comments here. Let's see here. First of all, hi Lilypad. Lilypad's in the house, David.
#1 fan.
Yep. Let's see here. Rendered Reality says, I really hope Radial G gets some multiplayer added in the future. Yes.
It is.
Yes.
Yeah, they've already confirmed it, but it's not coming until I think sometime next year.
Awesome. Rendered Reality says motion sickness can be overcome, though. When we first got 3D graphics on a screen, that caused people to get motion sickness. In a few years, I think it will be a non-issue. I mean, I know people who have gotten past it. I mean, it's rare, but I do know people who have got their, VR legs, so to speak. I don't know. David, you've never had a problem at all.
No, I've never been motion sick. No.
But Ian, you're Captain Motion Sickness.
You made a joke with me once that all I have to do is spend more time in VR to get over that, and I got angry because I'm like, I've spent hundreds and hundreds of hours doing just everything, and it doesn't go away no matter what I try. It's all based on the software. It's all based on what I'm doing and how it mismatches with my sense of where I am.
So I'd say it's because for people, their eyes are saying they're moving through the space, but their inner ear is saying they're disconnected. I mean, mostly, even more than whether you get lag, right? Very simple physiological situation. And the question is, that people who can. I had one, young woman in my office, and she could. I don't care what you did to her, she never got sick, and I'd be in something for 15 seconds, right? So I mean, for people who do feel nauseous, there's tons of wonderful stuff to do. You just have to look for things that the movement is exactly locked to your body movement. I guess that's why I always like to move stuff, make stuff that let you move your body, because I knew it did make me sick. And so, which is why I was stuck with headsets that let you move. Which is why you and I probably love the Quest, because we know in the Quest, if we're going to move, then the content's going to move with us, and that may be why that it makes me that 100% of people are going to enjoy the experience. So if you're somebody who starts to feel like they get nauseous in VR, try the things that don't do that kind of movement, because there's lots of amazing stuff out there.
Yeah, there's a lot of good experiences out there.
And for a lot of people that look at videos or watch, streams or whatever, they see games or experiences where you have to teleport around and they think it looks dumb. When you're in VR, it doesn't feel as dumb as it looks in a video. And that's hard to articulate, because whenever I'm in VR, if I just teleport over every now and then to different areas and then I move around physically, I don't know, it doesn't take you out of it as much as you would think it does. You get used to the teleporting in most things if it's required.
It helps
like something
if the
like
developer,
budget cuts is a
if
great
the developer
example.
makes the effort to make the teleport part of the narrative of the world that you're in, it really helps,
exactly.
I think, a little bit with that.
Yeah, Budget Cuts is a great example of a game that I couldn't even imagine playing that without teleporting, because that's integral to the design of the game.
Yeah, there's a lot of comments going on back and forth about it, so it does seem like it's kind of
the fight.
Yeah, it's kind of a mixed opinion. I mean, I can remember back in the day of Oculus Share, there was a demo called Big Bear Ride. And I don't know if any of you have been to an amusement park. There's the Scrambler, and it was kind of like the Scrambler, but it went up in the air as well.
Oh, God.
And that's the only experience where I had to stop. I was doing a live stream, and I had to stop, and I thought I was going to blow chunks. I mean, it was bad.
Wow.
It was really, really bad. So it happens.
Yeah,
I remember
I've
one of my
intentionally tried to make myself sick, because I want to know like what triggers it for me and what I can communicate to people, but it just never happened.
Well,
I was streaming Grand
You're
Theft Auto
lucky.
5,
You're so
and I
lucky,
jumped.
right?
Yeah, I know I am very
You're
fortunate.
lucky.
I jumped out of a plane in GTA 5 in VR, and I was tumbling through the air. Like the camera was literally rolling in the air. And I
Wow.
thought that might have done it, but it
we
didn't.
we had
so.
to we had to build a piece for an artist that I'd worked with. Super interesting guy who built this moved a brick wall across the street in Hong Kong, like literally put one brick and then over to the next brick in like 5 hours with traffic coming at him. So I rebuilt that piece for him. Then we went to Art Basel and we did it in VR so that you have to move the bricks across the street with cars coming at you. But then he asked me to make a second piece with him, and we scanned the basketball player Jeremy Lin. And so we had a really beautiful version of Jeremy Lin bouncing a ball and throwing it into the hoop. But he wanted the camera to be attached to the basketball, so you're being bounced by Jeremy Lin.
Oh.
And this went into the Guggenheim Museum, you guys. This piece, right? And I couldn't make the piece. I couldn't fucking be in the basketball and there's no way. And I was begging him. I was like, look, just cut the camera so that you're right in the basket and it swooshes onto your face. It'll cause a lot of reaction, but people won't get sick. I want strong reaction. So, one of my team, he just tolerated that over and over and over again of testing.
Oh man.
With the camera.
Ultimate role playing.
And by the way,
the ball.
By the way, the basketball could not just shoot into the basket; it had to rotate on its way to the basket too. It was everything. So, I don't know. Yeah. You and I are like, why would you? I'm like, it's a museum going to have some puke buckets next to the exhibit. So there you go.
Well, one of my favorite, one of the worst mistakes I ever made was when I got the DK2. I was one of I ordered it as soon as I could off the website, so I got it before everyone else. And I was looking on Reddit for things to try, and someone said, I've got a new demo. Is anyone out there with a DK2 willing to try it? And I go, okay, send it to me. And then I got the message, by the way, I don't have my own DK2, so I wrote this piece of software without actually trying it on a VR headset first.
Oh boy,
that's dangerous.
And that was within 30 seconds. I was sick. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
There you go.
That's lovely. So the only thing I played this week was the Green Day tracks on Beat Saber, which I had top 10 scores. Yeah, I had top 10 scores for 5 seconds, and then I got notifications that people beat my score. So good for you guys. Let's move on to...
We do have a review of that, by the way, from Harry Baker on our site.
That's right. So go check that
out.
Uploadvr.com.
I've got a bunch of games to watch this week. I'm on the BAFTA Games voting committee. So
boy.
I've got my list of VR games for the holidays to 2 weeks from now.
I've done that for an event once where they send you the spreadsheet of links to all the different things you have to try. I've done that before.
I've done that. I mean, I voted for Job Simulator in Indiecade. I was one of the first that I judged, and I'm really proud of having helped support that game because I think that was a really good milestone. That was a good milestone for us, don't you think?
Really absolutely.
Vacation Simulator is up there. It'll be not to spoil things, but that'll be one of our nominees for Game of the Year. But it's one of those things. It's the first game in VR my kid has ever beaten. From start to finish.
Play constantly. Yeah,
it's such a compelling thing because it doesn't make a lot of people sick. It's super comfortable in that way.
Mm-hmm. And that was early Indicated a couple of years ago, of course. And so there were a bunch of games that were I had to yank the headset off. But.
All right, let's move on to the hot topic of the week. So the hot topic, obviously, if you've been keeping up with the news, the Quest and the Index both backordered to February. I mean, completely backordered.
Wow,
what does this mean?
Great.
Ian, what do people do? What do we do? What do we tell people?
Oh, yeah. What do we tell people? So,
get a go.
Don't.
Boy, guys, in trouble. I've already gotten in trouble for that one. Oh,
my headline on the editorial was that they discounted it to $120 on Cyber Monday. So the Quest was sold out, and then you could get a Go for $120. And so I made my URL Oculus Go Away because I want that thing gone. I want it in the history books. I want it to be a memory. So don't get Go. All right, but
that's a very unpopular opinion. Though.
I know, but I got grief. I'm with Ian, and I got grief for it too. What I'm worried that what you have is a bunch of parents going, oh yeah, I've got to have something for the holidays, And
Or not
I'm-
even just parents. Like I know people that are very apt PC gamers that see an Oculus Go and think, "Oh, that's an Oculus headset. I'm gonna get it."
Oh,
yeah, and so people, I think you're, again, once again, we're not mature enough as an industry to make people walk away. You know, it's hard enough when I was literally in an event with one of the producers from Ready Player One, the film, and we're in this thing, and somebody turned to him and said, "So, do you think that VR is, going to be a good thing or bad thing?" And he's like, "Oh, it's going to be really bad. Everybody's going to go into VR worlds and forget about the real world, and they're going to, it's dystopic, dripping out of his mouth." So anytime there's something like this where they're like, "Come on, that was it's crap," I really, I resent it because I work so hard to make high quality experiences, and then when we get a situation where people feel resentful, they've spent $120 on something that doesn't let them get the experiences that everybody's raving about. It just scares. It makes me feel frustrated. That's all. If you know what you're buying, fine. If you know what you're buying, fine. If they know what they're buying,
Yeah,
okay.
That
But
exactly.
but if they, and I'm worried that people just don't. They just don't. They make that error. Okay.
The challenge here, and I put this because Ian, you've been very vocal on Twitter, and I've said my piece as well, and everybody's entitled to their own opinion. I qualifying the customer. If you are the type of person who just wants passive 3 DOF experiences, the Go is amazing for that purpose. But if you're looking for that to be play Half-Life Alyx or play Vacation Simulator or any of that, no, that's not going to happen, and that's where the challenge is, and that's, I think, what your concern
been
is.
at Best Buy in the last 5 years? I mean, those people working at Best Buy have no clue what to give that advice. Like that's the most common physical store you can find in the United States to actually go find these electronics, and those people cannot help you in 9 times out of 10. And I mean, I was in Walmart and someone was looking for a Switch, and the person at Walmart couldn't help them find a Switch. Like it's just the lack of knowledge, the gap of knowledge. It's really hard to ensure that you can qualify people that way. So I'm gonna. This is complicated, but like I'm gonna say that you could get a Rift S, right? You could get a Rift S and have a great PC VR experience. You could get a Windows MR headset for an affordable price and have a good experience. But I love the Quest and I love the Index so darn much. I'm going to have to recommend putting a note under the Christmas tree from Santa, or from whatever, and saying it's coming in February. Order it, deal with the delay, and get one of those 2 headsets because I love those headsets so darn much, and I think they're so much better than everything else on the market.
Okay, in the comments here, Chris Richardson has a great piece of advice for you, Ian. It says, "Thankfully, you can return anything you buy."
It's true.
Now,
That's Jason Rubin's advice, right?
Yeah.
I talked to Jason Rubin at E3 this year, and I'm like, they had the situation back then where they sold out of the Quests, and you could go into Best Buy and see the empty shelf of all the Quests, and then right below it is 6 boxes for Oculus Go. And I go to Jason Rubin at Oculus and say, are people buying this headset? And he jokingly responded, yeah, I hope if you bought an Oculus Go for gaming, I hope it's from a place with a good return policy.
Well, this is the same guy who promoted the hell out of 360 video, and I was why I was 3D printing my own headset. I mean, I know they were trying, but I have these photographs for the from the when we first went off to Hungary and LA, when Palmer was first making the headsets with us at USC, and I wouldn't let it get in the car because it was still making me nauseous. So like this is an old thing where I mean, I guess they had to keep selling and fantastic. Look, Oculus has now made a headset that we love, and that's wonderful. But I do feel like once again we slowed the trajectory of this medium because money did not come in to create the kind of experiences that we needed because everybody ran to 360 video and YouTube. I mean, and Google to 180 video. Can somebody tell me why? Anyway, sorry. Okay.
No, it's great.
High five.
There's
I don't know.
so Paradise Decay puts it perfectly. Mummy, what color quest did you get me? It's a gray one, honey. It's fine. It's fine.
Oh.
Keep the receipt. James O'Loughlin makes an interesting point. He says the problem is Facebook has no retail stores. I don't think that's a problem. I don't want to go to a Facebook store. And I know I never get Ian into one of those. So
That's interesting.
Well,
You'd have
why-
to scan
why-
the QR code on your Facebook app with your profile to get in, probably. Or
That's
something
right.
Like that. Yeah.
You know,
That's right.
Apple and Microsoft both decided that was in their strategy to have a retail presence in common places where people can, find the products, feel them, get a look at them.
Hell, even
and-
Amazon does now.
Mhm.
Yeah. But I mean, Facebook's culture all the way down is only do things that scale to 6 billion people. So like, I don't know if they'll ever see the value in that, but like,
yeah.
if you really want to get headsets on a lot of people, going to a store and having a great Beat Saber experience and a job simulator experience, and
Yeah.
that could have a powerful thing, and you can't get that anywhere today. It's what's so tragic about the VR market. That's why we're having this discussion, is because people can't fathom and understand the difference between these headsets.
So we're doing a really good job. Actually, let me see here. It looks like Chris Richardson. I love that this Nonny person. She's a blast. Slappa Delikey. All right, thank you, Chris.
Thank you so much.
We have a challenge here because the topic is actually that it's back ordered to February. And here we are talking about how not to get the thing that is available. But what do we tell folks who are looking to get the good stuff? What do we tell them?
Find a friend that has one and go
You know
try
what?
it.
Rift S and then return it and get a Quest when they're available, right? That's
Boom.
to combat. Yeah. We did it.
Yeah, there it is.
Do you
Buy
have
a
enough
Rift S
time?
and return it.
Can you only get more than 30 days? Yeah. Wow, yes. Yeah. Rift S return
Yeah.
for Quest. Yeah, you could do that. I mean, if you know, or you can also go buy a Vive and have some fun with a Vive for now.
Yeah,
too.
and Vive is very affordable right now, and it's still a great
Yeah.
headset. Yeah,
Vive is a great headset. I'm still
not Cosmos necessarily, right?
Not Cosmos.
The original Vive. I would recommend the original.
Yeah, I would say get the Vive and the Index controllers, but I think the Index controllers are out of stock as well by
Wow.
themselves.
Amazing.
I mean-
Because the Vive Pro is a nice headset. It's been a really nice headset. But getting
It
the
is, yeah.
controllers, if that's the case. So it's true. A Quest is different. It's standalone. The Quest is a game changer. I agree. But
Yeah,
in the
for me
meantime,
personally, I just find it hard to recommend a Vive for gaming because of those controllers. The trackpads are just not accurate enough.
okay. That's a
They've
very
really
interesting
standardized
question.
on the
The thumbsticks, yeah.
the thumbsticks, and
Even
the
the new
Vive
Vive, the
controllers are the
Cosmos
only
has
ones
thumbsticks.
that have
yeah.
touchpads instead of thumbsticks. Yeah.
Or the Windows ones have both, which is weird, but.
Although PSVR, we've got a PSVR. We forgot to mention that, but like I hate the 180 tracking, so I can't recommend it because of that. But it's got a lot of great games.
Has
I
anybody
think if
tried
you. Oh, go ahead.
the new Qualcomm headset? Has anybody been able to put it in? I
No.
demoed a prototype of it in their lab a couple of years ago now, and it was edge computing. So it was a pretty badass headset, I have to say. So I have a lot of hope that this new headset that they've had in stealth mode and that they just announced like a few weeks ago, right? Might be very interesting too.
Qualcomm always has new demos, and CES is coming up in like 2 weeks, so hopefully we'll get all those latest demos at CES in Vegas.
That's right. We do have CES coming up. I want to wrap up this part and get to the interview here. But David, can you give us a quick rundown on anything that we should be looking at on uploadvr.com right now?
Yeah, sure. So this week is the last week that we're doing our nominee dedicated articles. So we have 7 up so far of our 10 nominees for Best VR of the Year. And so you can see those on our website. We have nominated stuff like No Man's Sky VR, Wolves on the Walls VR, Pistol Whip, Asgard's Wrath, and a bunch of others. We have 3 more that we're going to be posting today and tomorrow. So definitely check those out. Jamie and Zena are in Japan right now. They just filmed some great stuff for the next episode of the Culture Show, which will be probably later this month or early January when they get back. That'll be a really cool non-gaming show that they do here on our YouTube. We have 2 episodes so far, so definitely check those out. And also, as always, here on our YouTube, we post all the latest VR reviews and gameplay videos and live streams. And every Friday is the VR Recap news show, where we do a 3 to 4 minute long recap of the week and do giveaways as well. So if you haven't yet, you can check last week's episode still for the giveaway. You can win a copy of Proteus, of Radial G Proteus, or a copy of Gollum on PSVR. And we're giving away signed vinyls of the soundtrack for Gollum. So you can check those out.
Awesome.
And yeah, so that's all the stuff that we're doing for the most part. CES is coming up, obviously, and I think less than a month, right? It's coming up pretty soon.
Right after Christmas, right after the New Year.
And PAX East shortly after that. So we're going to be at both of those shows. And so yeah, everyone tune in to Upload. Go to uploadvr.com for all the latest. And it was a pleasure meeting you virtually, Nonny. And I look forward to watching your interview with Ian.
Thank you so much, Dave. Thank you guys for having
right.
me, by the way.
Absolutely, yes. It's always a pleasure to have staples of the industry on the show.
Thank you so much.
Let's switch over here. So stay tuned. We'll switch our set and we'll get into the interview with Nonny de la Peña.
Thank you.
I'll ask you.
We're live now.
I'm here with Nonny de la Peña. Can you tell us about sort of everything you've been up to? How did you get started in VR? And tell me about Emblematic Group.
Sorry.
That's a lot.
Sorry. I shouldn't laugh because it's been busy. I think the very first thing I was always a big sci-fi reader, very interested. I said it, read Gibson and certainly every bit of Neville Stevenson, et cetera. But ended up building in Second Life a virtual Guantanamo Bay prison. I was interested in this idea of this place where that was, legally outside any kind of court of law, and was journalistically important, but was really out of sight and out of mind. And how could we bring accessibility to important stories like this? And then after we made that, this is done with an artist named Peggy Weil, I got invited into the amazing lab of Mel Slater and Maria Sanchez Vives in Barcelona. And Mel really is one of the most important thinkers in this field. If you don't know his work, you should check out how long Mel's been doing really interesting pieces. And we made this crazy embodied experience where we put you in the body of a detainee in a stress position. And people were just sitting up in a chair and they were wearing a breathing strap and they had their hands behind their backs. But after they experienced the piece where we had a virtual mirror and they showed your body hunched over, everybody thought that, like, we say, well, what was your body like? And they'd bend their entire body over into a hunched position. And that's when I was like, whoa, this is an amazing medium to build in. And that led to Hunger in Los Angeles. This is during the downturn in the United States. People were going hungry, food banks were overwhelmed, and yet they're basically invisible. So working out of the ICT lab at USC, where at the time Palmer Luckey was like the lab intern, I made this experience that put you on scene at a real food bank. It was all digitally recreated, but the audio was real. And you became a witness when a man with diabetes who doesn't get food in time drops into a diabetic coma in front of you. It got into Sundance. And at that point, the headsets were $50,000 a pop. And the head of the lab, Mark Bullis, said, you can't take any of those headsets with you. And Palmer was there building headsets. So we showed up with this crazy duct tape pair of goggles. Palmer was crashed in my hotel room and drove the truck back for us. And that was the first VR piece ever at Sundance. And then
what year was that?
2012.
So right
and
before.
And 9 months later, Palmer started Oculus.
Wow.
And that's my quick rundown on the background. And since then, go ahead, ask a question, and I'll go from there.
Well, was one of the journalism-based projects that I tried showed a someone coming out to their family in a living room. Was that an Emblematic Group project?
That was an Emblematic Group project.
Yeah, and that was really powerful. And it's one of these things that it affected me so deeply to have that experience. But it's also just how do we get the audience larger for these projects? Because we talked about it a little bit in the other part of the show, but the game store, this Oculus store is built to promote games, and Steam store is built to promote flat screen games most, and then VR games second. What can be done to get more eyeballs in front of this work?
So this is why I have got a very beta but prototype called Reach.love. And the idea with Reach was we built a very simple button-based volumetric creation tool in WebXR. We built it on top of A-Frame and JavaScript, and it lets people make volumetric content. You can easily pull in GLTF files from Sketchfab, and then you can just publish it as a URL. And it's embeddable just like a YouTube video, but it's volumetric. You can move through it. You can either use your keyboard, flat screen. You can click a button and start walking around with any headset, or you can watch it on your phone. And the idea was I was so sick of not only this just exact distribution problem that you were talking about, but also the limitation. Like when I put up a piece on Syrian refugees on Steam, I got so much vitriolic hate sent at me. That was the last time that I started posting personal stuff on Facebook because I got so much, Gamergate like crap thrown at me for making journalism pieces. That said, I do have projects up on Steam and share, but and we did make 360 versions of the volumetric content, including the pieces I did with PBS Frontline and Nova, two big journalism organizations. But
Did you
we have to solve this problem. Go ahead.
Did you work with Frontline on the guidelines for journalism in VR?
Yes, we did.
What can you explain some of those?
Yeah, so we try to look at some of the best practices for thinking about approaches to content creation that's digital content creation, but still uphold some of the best practices that we've learned journalistically through the years, right? And what are some of the limits of recreation? But in some ways, that document, to me, still offers some very interesting questions we haven't solved. So here's an example. We did a piece with NASA scientists for a climate change piece, and we shot the characters on an 8-eye green screen stage. Most of the rest of the content was photogrammetry, so very photoreal and based on scene. But in this case, we put you inside a NASA airplane, and the NASA scientist wanted to wear his blue airplane jumpsuit. And there's a big discussion about whether that was okay or not, because if you go into the NASA plane, you think that he's in his plane flying in his airplane, but no, he's been filmed in a studio in Los Angeles. Shouldn't he be wearing regular clothing? And the scientist was like, there's no way. I'm going to appear in my airplane, not in my jumpsuit. And we're like, but you're not actually in your airplane. And so that moment was kind of interesting. He won. We put him in his jumpsuit.
So, I mean, this discussion is so near and dear to my heart because it's so tough. Because we're writing for the consumers out there, the people who are actually buying these headsets. We're trying to answer their questions. The people who are actually in there, being some of the first to ever buy these headsets and spend hundreds of hours in them, and we're trying to answer their questions and also give them what they need and what they want. It's a mix of giving both, and sometimes we try to be entertaining too,
Right.
amidst all those things. And it's an always constantly challenging balance, and especially with the journalism projects. I spent some of that some of our previous discussion talking about Titans of Space and why it comes with my highest recommendation for VR software I can ever give. But we still hear from these people who, like you say, just comment. And, there's a real failure on a lot of platforms' parts to foster useful discussion and to help uh, weed through bad actors and keep people who are just haven't made their true motivations known, and they're actually acting in some hidden fashion. And I don't know what the answer is, but I thankful, so thankful for you to join us today and talk about these things. But is there anything? I guess I'll ask you this: is there anything that we can do as journalists covering this industry to do a better job of highlighting the good work in VR, the things that are going to keep this from becoming the dystopia that we all sometimes joke about, but often fear?
I think this is a very important question. And I think that where we once thought it was great to open up everything to anybody to make comments, we now know that unfortunately we do have to do some sort of curation. That doesn't mean that you're gonna shouldn't be allowed some negative commentary on uh, people's opinions about a piece of content, but vitriolic comments are pretty easy to spot. I think we definitely have a common sense space, and people can always publish on in other ways, right? Um, but we do live in this moment where somebody like Kurt Eichenwald, who's a journalist and has epilepsy, could get sent in Twitter a response that actually triggered his epilepsy, and he fell and he was injured. And the man who did that just lost his court case and has to pay some damage to him. At the same time, basically the same day, a similar message was sent to the American Epileptic Association's bunch of people were now affected. So we have to, unfortunately, that's like that's a snow crash,
Yep. I was thinking of that.
software.
It's scary. It's terrifying.
Yeah, it's a manifestation that's sort of described. That's what makes Snow Crash pretty interesting. Um, that's a literally sending code that can affect people. So I know it seems a little bit of an aside, but it does mean that we have a responsibility as journalists to, unfortunately, be on the front lines to try to um, raise the conversation to and more elevated and more um, uh, uh, civilized conversation.
It's so one of the most complicated situations that we were dealing with right now is Facebook employing this real identity policy on its social network. So they have it built right into their terms of service that you need to use the real name you use in everyday life with their service, including now Quest and Oculus headsets. The problem is we've seen it in our comments and in our response that people are very seriously considering setting up fake Facebook accounts in order to get into these headsets without letting Facebook suck down all their information and target ads to them and uh, learn more about people than maybe people know about themselves in some cases. That's ultimately the fear of some of these platforms. I guess I put that. So right now, I'm using Oculus avatars, their current avatar system,
All right.
and I have people that I would love to have come on to our show who will not allow Facebook software in their home, who just refuse to use it. And I both understand and I understand that perspective, but obviously we're using Oculus hardware, we're using Oculus software to do this show. There's a balance here where we're trying to reach people out there and give them what they, like I said, need, want to know. But I never know where to draw the line, right? To journalists and to people who are trying to moderate these communities and keep bad actors off. It's never clear what ethical guidelines should be followed to allow that type of discussion or not allow this type of discussion. And
So I was on a commission this last year that was funded by the Knight Foundation and the Aspen Institute on Trust, Media, and Democracy. And you're actually raising the same kind of questions we grappled with. And we had folks from Google and from Facebook on this incredible group of academics and thinkers and lawyers, et cetera. I mean, I felt more of a observer in many ways, but because I'm not sure that what I was yet offering was enough in the culture for people to really understand its implications. But as we both know, this is the future. We know this is the future. We know people are going to be interacting this way. They're going to come together in spaces. I really wished on that commission that we had also invited Mozilla. I think that the work that Mozilla is trying to do to offer privacy spaces, and they have some very, they picked up some of the alt space folks when that company went bankrupt. Microsoft picked up some, but Mozilla picked up others. So I think these questions that you're asking are going to get played out in a bigger way, and I think that that you're going to have Mozilla, Microsoft, Facebook all entering this space. And it may, in my dream world, that it will be a self-correcting problem because if Mozilla is able to enter it in a way that offers privacy, I think Facebook is still going to want us to be, in their platform as well, and they might have to issue some retreats on demands on your information. They might have to be a different kind of player in this space. I mean, certainly Facebook's under a lot of pressure for its approach on fake ads, et cetera, et cetera.
Interesting. Yeah, Mozilla is definitely a company that has been doing incredible things there, both to socially connect people and again, it's tough where their WebVR, WebXR, that the delivery system you've talked about being able to get to such a wide range of people also lags in many ways what's capable with an embedded native system. So,
That's right.
and it becomes the stuff that we love so much about VR, the true immersion, really high fidelity experiences don't actually reach as far as we'd like them to because of various pipeline problems. It's hard for journalism to stand out on Oculus's platform, like I was saying earlier, and Steam's platform. We've got we've got a project we were looking at recently that is set in Hong Kong. And it's sort of letting you see what it's like to be a protester in Hong Kong, getting tear gas canisters launched at you. And I don't think the project has been approved for release on Steam. It's just not available on Steam. And the people, it's one of those things where we have to hear from the developer, why was your app rejected? What communication did you have with the platform holder? Let us know what that communication is like so that we can report about this accurately and understand the reasons why the platform is not letting you onto their platform. I think Steam once posted a blog post at one point saying that they're more or less the ethics of why they won't publish something on Steam is if it's outright trolling or bad business. I think that was more or less the way Steam explained its position. And I guess I just don't know.
Well, we've had hiccups over the years publishing on Steam, because we have published on Steam. Pretty almost, I think all of our pieces are available on Steam, I think now. But things like one of the, I know this is a dumb hiccup for us, but the fact that you have to cut a 2D video to show what your work is about, and I know that shouldn't be a hang up, but if it's like, oh, I've got a volumetric piece, why do I have to put something flat on your website to show what it is? And also, I'm an artist, so I have a really high standard. That means that I can't just put up any shitty trailer. So I've got to take the time to cut a 2D trailer that looks good. Oh, I've got to go.
It's a lot of work at the end of your project, and you just want to make the project better. You don't want to be promoting the project necessarily.
And then we've had some really weird glitches. I wish I could, I'm here in my office. Most of my people arrive later than I do. Here, and I wish I could turn to somebody and say, "What was that? Why we were having so much trouble on?" There were weird glitches that were coming up, and they weren't necessarily. They were just sort of file format type of glitches. They weren't necessarily anything political, but hopefully that's all that they're facing.
Let me ask. Let me work the question this way. Do you think there's legal changes that can help the situation? Help clean up online discussion, and so that bad actors aren't more. I think about the real name policy in particular here, where people are being encouraged to set up fake accounts on Facebook specifically to protect themselves, and I don't understand. Like, so let me take a step back. I've had a discussion with one of the teams at Facebook that's developing the hyper realistic avatars.
Right.
So, and I put this question to them: is do you think future headsets will authenticate the user? And the answer I got back was more or less, yes. It was more or less going to be very likely. It just they didn't say it in those terms. They didn't give me quite as I've summarized it here, so quite such a clear answer. But in the future, it seems very likely that you're going to put this headset on and it's going to verify who you are. And I don't know if that's necessarily the right solution.
Put these glasses on, you mean? I mean, it won't even be a
glasses,
headset.
yeah.
It's going to be that light. So, I know that at the airport, I'm the first person to be happy because I have to travel so much to use Clear and be able to just use my eye to track and get my boarding pass and get on my plane. We know that in China, that's a very, very common thing to do. So, but as long as there's been ability to track people, there's been technologies developed to evade tracking. So I don't know whether it's going to be some sort of special contact lenses or da 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 da. This is going to be a tug and a pull forever. And it's a really tough question because on one hand, we don't want Facebook sucking up, or even worse than sucking up my data, I think, delivering me content that's going to affect the way I think about the world, and which can have literally a detrimental consequence that we've seen, obviously. But there's that with the sense of like the ease in which getting eye tracking, what it lets me do. So, I have a pair of the Bose AR glasses, and I went and fixed them, so that I could have my real lenses in them. And I love them. I love them. I love not searching for my headset and my pieces and making sure they're not lost or where they are, or my glasses, where's my audio, so that convenience is definitely going to happen. And then what does that mean for tracking? So is there a different approach, I ask you, Ian? Is there something else we could do to try to create more kindness among each other so that what we're talking about is more of a social shift?
It's a wonderful question. I mean, we've got our platform and we try to encourage positive discussion that helps other people with that discussion. And when people are hurting other people, we're going to cover that too. That's what journalists cover, truth, and I think the manipulation of truth and the manipulation of perception is the reason I focus on this work, right? And I talk about these headsets. Like, it's very hard not to get very meta here, but like, if I point my eyes to the edges of these lenses, I see the fixed foveated rendering that they're using to lower the resolution. So in a very subtle way, these headsets are encouraging me to look directly ahead. When the field of view gets bigger, maybe that starts to go away a little bit over time, and when they are able to actually eye track and do all those things. But it becomes, I'm trying to let the people out there know about all of these subtle ways that their perception is being affected by the hardware itself. And then there's the software questions and the things that could be slipped into software, or the way software can also manipulate perception and the way we think. And it's an ongoing battle where I hope to have you on in the future as we try to unfold this stuff for people
Unpack
and
stuff.
let people know.
I saw this really interesting. This is a long time ago, and it was a Yale law school professor, and he was discussing the rights of your avatar. So there you are, the representation of Ian that you have. What are the rights of that avatar? And will that also provide us with some relief from some of the tracking? Do you have a right? Can we, since we know what online privacy disruption looks like now, or tracking, can we, before all of us have a virtual self, maybe make some legal whatever, you get what I'm saying?
Yeah, so Chris is asking, and this is one of the questions I wanted to get to, is there a list that people can find, or a URL you can point to, of all the experiences that you've worked on? Where would you direct people to find Emblematic Group work?
So I would go to emblematicgroup.com, and then once you're able to go to the our website is almost fully up to date, I hope. But once you go through that, you can look through our experiences, and then most of them are available either on Steam or just email us. And that's sort of dumb, right? Because we don't really have a proper VR journalism organization. I tried to raise money for that for years. And I've just kept going and kept making pieces, working on a super interesting piece about Lyme disease right now. So we're not really at a point where I can say, and here's our journalism organization, and here's where everything is. We've had to go ahead and put stuff up more up on Steam than on Oculus, because at most of our early pieces are 6DoF. In fact, the vast majority of my work is 6DoF. So an Oculus share wasn't as friendly to 6DoF initially.
We've dropped the link for emblematicgroup.com into the chat, so there you can find a lot of Nonny's work.
And if you want to play with Reach.love, it is very, I would say, beta, alpha plus, beta minus, but you can sign up and start playing at beta.reach.love. You can clone an environment from the beginning, or with Sketchfab, just make sure you download it as a GLTF. Use and just upload into Reach the zip file. Don't unzip it, and have some fun.
We've also got a link to that in our chat. What do you have coming up in the next year? What does the next year look like for you?
So I mentioned earlier, we're wrapping up a really, really powerful piece about a teenage boy who was taken from his home in San Gabriel, California, and brought to a Japanese American concentration camp in Wyoming at Heart Mountain in the 1940s. And he did this incredible diary full of the most beautiful humanistic thinking, and he was an artist. So we're using his diary where we've taken his drawings, and I've had an incredible artist working in my office, Haley Tomasik, whose grandfather was in one of the camps, and she's animated all of his drawings into these quill pieces. So we're just completing that. It'll for sure launch at the Japanese American National Museum at the end of April, and we're hoping for a release at one of the festivals. And I'm working on a really interesting project about Lyme disease. And man, I don't want to get into this, but if you're interested in science stuff, and check out biofilms. Biofilms are really crazy interesting. And we've been modeling spirochetes and looking at a recent autopsy that might have offers us a really major clue about why some people get chronic Lyme disease. And I'm taking that person whose autopsy it is, and we found her original story, and it's really powerful. So I'm going to be telling the story of this woman who died, but who actually may be able to offer the clue for any other Lyme sufferers. And the final thing that I'm raising money for now is kind of incredible. I introduced the filmmaker Alejandro Gonzalez Inarritu, I think people say Inarritu, to VR, and worked with him on his piece Carne Arena. But now he's agreed to work with me on a piece I want to do on a remake of a 1928 black and white film that established the art of the close-up. It was called The Passion of Joan of Arc, and the script is out of copyright. And I've raised already a little bit of money, and I'm raising some more money on remaking that film in virtual reality.
Wow, that sounds fascinating. I can't wait to see these. Thank you so much for joining me, and this has been a pleasure. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in.
Thank you so much, everybody, and I really appreciate you guys being interested and taking the time to listen to these very complex issues and some really very last note I just want to say is that, like Ian, I am so bullish on this medium. I think it is definitely, I can see it as the future as much as I can see my virtual hand in front of me. And I'm really excited that you guys continue to be one of the best spaces to learn about all the new stuff going on.
Thank you. It means a lot. And we're going to do our best to make sure that these conversations aren't oversimplified and they're not, they're easily accessible by a wide range of people. It's not easy, and we're going to keep at it. So thank you so much for joining us, and thanks for tuning into the VR Download. Check out uploadvr.com, and we'll be back next week.
Right.